And we have Estela de Sosa, and she is going to take us along this journey of how to understand more about your body. And my little 2 cent or input on this is that one of the greatest assets that we have is the human body. And it's probably one of the least understood assets that we have. And so this will be a great introduction for you to understand the asset that you have, the valuable asset that you have of the human body, and what you can do to maximize on your assets. So your body is one of your greatest investments if you understand what it is that you have. Forgive the background noise. We have, I guess, those test alarms. So bear with us, and I'll be muting soon, and Estelle will pick up. But our disclaimer is that the opinions expressed in this presentation are those of the presenter. They do not purport to reflect the opinions or views of the 30-day redemption or its members, officers, staff, partners, or advertisers. So help me welcome Estela de Sosa, and she is going to take us on from here on to show you more about your body. All right, Estella, you got it.
Perfect. You can hear me okay?
Yep, loud and clear.
All right. Let me just pull up my slides here. All right, everyone. Welcome to Summer 1 of Anatomy and Physiology 1-on-1. I will be a professor. I'm just messing with you guys. Hello, everyone. Today, we will be discussing the anatomy and physiology of the human body. And my name is Estela de Sosa, and I'm looking forward to talking about this subject because I believe that when we know how our bodies work, then we can better know how to take care of it. And so before we start, I want to do a quick exercise, and I want you all to take a look at your body for a second. Just go ahead and take a look at your body, take a look at your hands, the front of your hands and the back of your hands. Wiggle your fingers a little bit. And while you wiggle your fingers, repeat with me. My body is my sacred space. Again, we're going to do it 3 times. My body is my sacred space. My body is my sacred space. And so every movement you make and every new day that you live to see is a result of a collection of systems working together to function properly. And so our body is indeed our sacred space. And so when you take a look at a sacred space, you probably think of a temple. And in the temple, you would go in with respect. You would go in there knowing that it's a sacred place, wanting to keep it clean and going in there with a presence. And a presence is knowing that as I'm stepping in here and this is a sacred space or a sacred place, so I'm honoring this place. I'm not going to disrespect it. I'm not going to use bad language or create conflicts. There's a certain energy when you say the word temple. So if you see your body as a temple, that means that even down to your way of being, the way you treat your body with honor, compassion, respect, and love, that means that you honor your body and you know that it's a sacred space. And so we'll learn a lot about the human anatomy and the function and the structure of how it works. And so before we do that, we'll talk about the levels of organization. So our bodies, the level of organization, the multicellular organism includes first, which is like the chemicals, and then which builds into molecules, and then builds into our cells, and then our tissues and our organs. And then we have our body system. And so, like I said, today we will look at all the levels as a whole, but we will mainly touch on every single organ system. And so first, I want to define some words, and just a little disclaimer, we will be talking a lot about the structure and the function of the human body, but we will also talk about what can cause these functions to be disrupted. So I'm not here to scare anyone or, step on anyone's toes or diagnose anyone, but this is only for our educational purposes. And so what is anatomy? Anatomy is the study of structure of organisms and their parts. And what is physiology? It is the study of function of the body parts and the body as a whole. And then another word that we use in anatomy and physiology is homeostasis. Homeostasis refers to the body's ability to maintain a stable internal environment. So an example of this is when the human body is the human body keeping an average temperature, which is 98.6 degrees. And anytime we have a fever, our temperature rises, which means our homeostasis is disrupted. And so if our homeostasis is disrupted, it must be controlled or a disease or disorder may follow. And our body system works together to maintain a balance. And if that balance is shifted or disrupted, the homeostasis is not maintained. And as a result, this may not allow us for our bodies to do the normal function as it's supposed to do. And so there are a few main examples of how our bodies keep the homeostasis. One of them is how it regulates the amount of water and the minerals in our body, and this is done through the kidneys. Also, how it removes the metabolic waste, and how it secretes the waste out of our body, and that's done through the kidneys and lungs. Also, we talked about regulating the body temperature, which is mainly done by our skin, and the function of the glucose. And so when our blood sugar is off, our homeostasis is disrupted, so our body has to do what it needs to do to bring it back to normal homeostasis. And so a few facts about the human body is that the body is made up of 100 trillion cells, 206 bones, 600 muscles, and 22 internal organs. The circulatory system, you can read through it, but I'll kind of move a little bit through it. The circulatory system of the arteries, the veins, the capillaries is about 60,000 miles long. Another one, the strongest muscle in our body is the tongue. I didn't know that. It takes about 20 seconds for a red blood cell to circulate around the whole body. Another thing is more people have brown eyes than any other colors. And more men are colorblind than women, which is a proven fact, no shade. Okay, so the human body is a remarkable biological machine. It has many systems working together to allow for life, movement, cognitive function, growth, repair, reproduction, and so much more. And so there are 11 major organ systems. There is the integumentary system, the skeletal, muscular system, nervous system, circulatory system, endocrine system, lymphatic system, which is our immune, digestive system, respiratory system, urinary system, and reproductive system. Okay. So our integumentary system forms the external body covering and protects deeper tissues from injuries. And it houses different receptors, sweat glands, oil glands, and it synthesizes vitamin D. How does our environment affect our skin? So our environment, the environment we live in, is very crucial is a crucial factor in maintaining the health of our skin. So I believe that a large portion of our skin problems are due to irritants in the air, such as the automobile exhaust, smoke from chemical factories, if you live near one. And there are triggers for poor skin health as much as, if not more, than there were 2 decades ago. And studies have shown that pollen can cause reactions in the skin and inhibit the way it builds and repairs itself. And also using harsh chemicals or harsh products that can also harm our skin. And studies have shown also how sun damage is another big issue. And generally, the planet is hotter. As the planet is getting hotter, we're seeing a lot more sun exposure. than we did 4 or 5 decades ago. And as a result, many new cases of skin cancer, as well as a high expenditures in healthcare, are due to something called actinic keratosis, which is a scaly and a crusty bump that is like a bump on our skin, and that's how sometimes those can cause skin cancer, and it's a byproduct of sun damage. It's also a very common condition in the Western world. And okay, and also as we see changes in weather, and so we realize that our skin is assaulted by the environment all year round, and we can't always avoid these aspects of the weather and the environment, but we can try to protect ourselves. And so how can we fix this? I suggest to maintain a comfortable temperature where you work, where you live. Make sure it's not too cold and not too hot, using a humidifier, and always wearing a protective clothing when you go outside. And also trying supplements for your diet, and using supplements, and also eating food that can help to nourish your body, like supplements like vitamin D and vitamin E, and food like fish, tofu, milk, spinach, and blueberries. And also eating foods that provide minerals and fatty oils needed for healthy skin texture. Dairy products are a good source, and walnuts as well. And so finally, to be diligent with your daily use of skincare products. Moisturizing products are crucial to protect the skin from cracking, and lotions with SPF can help you avoid damage from the sun. Even taking small steps in compromised climates can make a permanent difference in the health of your skin. And then the second system we'll talk about is a skeletal system. And the study of bones is called osteology. And the human skeletal system is a framework of the body and is responsible for iron structure, iron storage, endocrine regulation, blood cell production, organ protection, support, and movement. And it also consists of the axial and appendicular skeletal, which contains all the bones and all the joints in our body. And so the human skeletal consists of 80 axial bones, as you can see on your left here, which help the body to maintain the upright posture. It includes the vertebral column, the rib cage, and the skull. Now on the right, you have the appendicular skeleton. Skeleton is made up of 126 bones, which enable for motion and protection from major internal organs. And so humans, we are vertebrates, which means that they have a backbone and a spinal column. And altogether, there are 206 bones, and a baby has 300 bones at birth, and some fuse together as they grow. And half of these bones are in our hands, in their hands and feet. Okay, and so the largest bone in the body is the femur, as you can see there on the left. And the smallest bone are in the middle ear. Where bones meet is a cushion of cartilage, and bones are held together by a tough ligaments. Bones are made up of mostly of collagen. Bones, it's a living, growing tissue. So the collagen is a protein that provides the soft framework or flexibility. And calcium phosphate is a mineral that adds strength, and it hardens the framework, and it gives a structure, which is why it's so important for us to eat lots of green leafy vegetables. And then also on the left there, you can see the spongy bone, which is also still hard, but it has like air pockets, and it's also where in bone marrow, where the blood and stem cells are produced. And so a lot of people may think, where is blood produced, and just think, okay, maybe it's just produced in the heart, but really our blood is produced in our bone. And so our arms and legs fracture and breaks more common in growing children because the growth platelets are more vulnerable. And when a bone structure breaks, it is able to repair itself, especially bone cells will surround the injury and form it like a callus, and it breaks down the injured bone and replaces itself. When healthy bones are continuously maintained. And so some diseases of bones include the osteoporosis and arthritis. And like all organs and systems in the body, bones are susceptible to tumors and cancers because they are made up of active living cells, right? So some of the common bone diseases are arthritis, which is the inflammation and the swelling of our joints. The osteoporosis is like an abnormal loss of bone mass, in which our bones become very fragile and are prone to break. And so, and you can see some of the list there of other diseases. And so there are some healthy tips to avoid bone diseases, like avoiding or eating, which includes eating calcium rich foods, doing weight bearing exercise and activities, practicing good body mechanics, like when lifting or sitting. If you're sitting for too long, make sure you're getting up and moving your body. And also when lifting, make sure you are not using your back and using your legs or your thighs when you're lifting. So all these, practicing good body mechanics, especially as a CNA myself, um, I deal with a lot of patients, moving them and transferring them from bed to a toilet, or from bed or chair to bed. So it's really important when you're doing these type of heavy work that you are constantly using good body mechanics, because as over time, this is how, over time, especially with age, this is how you get arthritis or you have osteoporosis. Okay. So let's talk about the musculatory system. So the musculatory system is a system of the human body that provides motor power for all movement of body parts. And the body has three kinds of muscle, which is the skeletal for movement, the cardiac for heart, and smooth muscle for the digestive system. Its function, the musculatory, is composed of special tissues called muscular tissue, and the muscles have the ability to contract and provide force for movement. And so the musculatory system is an important system of the human body because without it, life would completely stop. And so muscles provide not only those movements that are under the control of our will, but also those movements that are responsible for activities like breathing, digestion of food, pumping the blood, reflexes, and more. And so one of the functions is movement of the body, and the skeletal muscle are responsible for all the voluntary movements of the body parts, and they provide the force by contracting and pretty much exponentiating energy. And in other words, the muscle are motors of the body where chemical energy of food is converted into chemical work. And then we also have stability and posture. The skeletal muscles stabilize the skeleton and gives proper posture to human beings. Some joints of the human body are weak and require support of the muscular system to achieve stability. We have heat production, which a large share of the body's energy is used by the muscular system. And as a result of the metabolism, the muscle produces a great amount of heat in the body, and heat produced by muscles is an important factor in a cold climate or for normal body function. Then we have the circulation. The cardiac muscle provides the main force for the circulation of blood throughout the body, and the regular pumping of the heart keeps the body in motion, which makes nutrients and gas available to all tissues in the human body. And finally, it helps in digestion. So the smooth muscle is an organ like stomach or the intestines help the digestive system to produce or to process digesting food. Sorry, guys. So let's talk about the nervous system. The nervous system connects all of our body parts and transmits signals from one part to another. And it is a system of cells, tissues, and organs that regulate the body's response to internal and external stimuli. So the system is a complex collection of nerves and cells known as neurons that transmit signals between different parts of the body. And it essentially is like the body's electrical wiring. Structurally, the nervous system has two components, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. So each part of the nervous system has a specific role as it functions as an important part of the system. So we'll talk about the central nervous system first, which is the first major part of the nervous system. Okay, so the central nervous system as the main processing it is the main processing for the entire nervous system. It consists of the brain, the cerebellum, the brain, and the spinal cord. And the brain is the organ that functions and organizes and processes and distribute information for the body. And then it has the three parts, with the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brain stems. And the spinal cord is the main pathway for information connecting the brain and the peripheral nervous system. So we'll look at the peripheral nervous system, which the peripheral nervous system also connects to the central nervous system. And it has two main parts, which is the somatic nervous system and the cranial nerves. So it communicates the somatic nervous system. It communicates its senses, with sense organs and voluntary muscles. And then it has two parts, which is the spinal nerves. And the spinal nerve, one is the nerves that carry motor and sensor signals between the spinal and the body. And the cranial nerves is the nerve fibers that carries information in and out of the brain stems. So the autonomic nervous system is a system that communicates with internal organs and glands and is associated with involuntary control of the body movement. And it has two subdivisions, which is the sympathetic and parasympathetic. Okay. We'll move on to the cardiovascular system, also known as the circulatory system. And this system consists of vessels, organs, throughout which blood flows and nutrients are transported throughout the body. And so in here, as you can see, so the primary function of the circulatory system is to keep the blood flow throughout the body in order to fight diseases and maintain homeostasis, which is the healthy internal balance. And the circular system is made up of three independent systems, which is the cardiovascular, the pulmonary, and the systematic system. And so the cardiovascular system consists of the heart, the pulmonary system consists of the lungs, and the systematic consists of the arteries, the veins, the coronary vessels, and portal veins. So, and then the systematic circulation occurs when the oxygenated blood is sent through the body. So the main parts of the circulatory system, so actually I already said that. Um, so the heart sends blood through the body, through the blood vessels and to the cells. And then blood transports the oxygen, carbon dioxide, amino acid, blood vessels, hormones, and other gases throughout the body. And also, blood consists of red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets, and plasma. So, let's talk a little bit about the cardiovascular disease. And the cardiovascular or circulatory disease are classified um, by affecting the cardiovascular system and the lymphatic um, system, which we will see in the few slides. And the cardiovascular system is the leading cause of death in the United States, according to the American Heart Association. And osteoclarosis is one of the top common disease, which occurs when the wall of the arteries are thickened and stiffed by the fatty deposits, such as fat or cholesterol. Stroke occurs when the blood vessels going into the brain are blocked. Hypertension is known as when we have high blood pressure. Blood pressure is a circulatory disease that can cause the kidneys complication, heart attack, or stroke, just to name a few. And so one way to help our heart is to to keep our hearts healthy by having or getting enough exercise, eating a well balanced and nutritious diet, not smoking, getting a regular checkup. All these things can help us to maintain a healthy heart. Right, moving right along, we have the respiratory system. The respiratory system is made up of parts and organs responsible for taking in oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide. So it includes our nose, our mouth, our larynx, trachea, bronchial tubes, the lungs, our diaphragm, and the muscles that enables us to be able to breathe. So the air first passes through the nose or the mouth into the nasal cavity, which is commonly known as the windpipe, which filtrates moisture, which filters, moistens, and regulates the temperature in the air we breathe. And the walls of our nose are lined with thin hair and mucus, which filters any foreign particles that we may inhale. All right, guys. And the function of the lungs is to exchange oxygen from the air to the bloodstream when we breathe in, and the carbon dioxide from the bloodstream to the air when we breathe out. And the human has two lungs side by side, and they are not the same size. The left one is slightly smaller to make room for the heart. Each lung is divided into lobes. The right one so they're each just divided into lobes, as you can see there. And so when we breathe, air enters into the respiratory system. And once it gets down into our trachea, it branches into the left and the right bronchi. And then each bronchi branches into smaller and smaller bronchi. And then we have bronchioles here on the left, where you can see the respiratory bronchioles. Which finally goes into millions of alveoli. And alveoli is where we have capillaries. We have blood vessels, we have veins, and then we have our capillaries. And in alveolar ducts is where the exchange of in the capillaries, where the exchange between the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood takes place. And so here, common respiratory disease and treatments Like all other systems in our body, respiratory is very vulnerable to conditions and diseases. It can be viruses like influenza, um, bacterial pneumonia, and such as or chronic disease such as asthma and COPD. And smoking can cause diseases and disorders like oral cavity cancer, larynx cancer, esophagus cancer, lung heart attack, and emphysema. And so asthma is a respiratory condition, whereas a person may experience difficulty in breathing due to the narrow or constricted air tubes caused by inflammation. And then, so the common cold can be caused by over 200 viruses. Let's see. So pneumonia is caused by bacterial and viral infection of the alveoli, where the tissue fluids are accumulating in the alveoli, like I showed you guys in the last slide, where in the alveoli we should not have any fluid just running rampant. So that's what causes pneumonia, where it accumulates in the alveoli and reduces the area for air exposure. So when there's liquid in the alveoli, the air is not able to get in and out, which can cause pneumonia. And then we have COPD, which is a group of progressive lung diseases, which can cause patients difficulty in breathing. And so some treatments, there are no treatments for COPD or cure, but treatments can ease symptoms and decrease chance of complications. So treatments include oxygen therapy, surgery, antivirals, and change of lifestyle, of course. Now we're going to talk about the endocrine system, which is my favorite system. And the endocrine system consists of all the glands in the human body, and it's responsible for producing hormones that regulate bodily functions such as growth, metabolism, reproduction, and our mood. And the endocrine system is a group of glands that secretes chemical substance called hormones into the circulatory system, again, which is the cardiovascular system. And the different glands that make up the endocrine system are the adrenal glands, thyroid glands, parathyroid glands, pituitary glands, pineal glands, hypothalamus, pancreas, ovaries, which are only found in females, and testicles, which are only found in males. And almost all organs in the bodies are affected by the endocrine system. So I want to talk about, hormones. And so what are hormones? Hormones are chemical substances produced in the body of an organism, and hormones are transferred in the bloodstream of humans, and they act as a stimuli to prompt specific cells to take specific actions. And then different types of hormones act on certain body parts depending on the bodily function and process. And because of hormones, information gets transported from one set of cells to another, and the function of different body parts are coordinated. So let's talk about some endocrine disorders and diseases. The most common endocrine disorder in the United States is diabetes. Diabetes is an endocrine disease in which one's blood sugar level are too high. And then we have Cushing disease, which is caused by high level or cortisol. And we have heard of hypothyroidism, which is it's a common condition caused by high levels of thyroid hormones. And then we have that was hyper, and hypo. It's an increase occurs in the pituitary gland, which is produces abnormal levels of hormones. And so in our endocrine system, our glands, in our brain, we have the hypothalamus, and in there we have the pineal gland. And so then we have I talked about the pituitary gland, how in the pituitary gland is where some hormones will be stored. So if the body is saying, okay, my sugar is too high, it sends a signal to the brain to say, okay, we need to stop whatever, um, we need to, it's called inhibit. We need to stop whatever is causing the blood sugar to be high. So we need to decrease something, which is insulin, to lower down the blood sugar. So our brain and our glands are constantly talking to each other, and they're sending signals to either, to increase something or decrease something. And all these things are working all together, in so many different intricate parts in the endocrine system. And let's talk about the lymphatic system. All right, so the lymphatic system, also known as the immune system, defends our body from infections and disease. It is a group of organs working together to protect us from infectious organisms. And the immune system serves its function by detecting a wide range of unknown agents, which are like pathogens. Pathogens are agents that cause disease, and they're classified from virus to parasitic worms. When these pathogens are detected, our immune system recognizes that there's a foreign or a different organism in our body, and it's different from our healthy, we could say our healthy cells. So our tissues try to eliminate them. The parts and functions of the immune system is a system of organs. It's a vessel system, cells and proteins that work together. And their main components of the immune system includes the white blood cells, antibodies, complement system, lymphatic system, spleen, bone marrow, and thymus. And so a little bit about the white blood cells, which are found in the bone marrow. They are part of the lymphatic system. And so think about the white blood cells as like the disease police. So these cells run around the blood, in the blood vessels, and the body tissues as well. And the duty of them is to patrol and look out for foreign invaders like bacteria, parasites, and fungi. And then, so in our lymphatic system, it's like a network of intricate tubes throughout the body. And think about it as like a station or a terminal that deploys a team that fights the disease. Okay, it plays a major role in the body, such as managing fluid levels in the body, reacting to bacteria, dealing with cancer cells, dealing with cell products that can cause other diseases and disorders. And then in the lymphatic system, we have the lymphatic nodes, which they're like glands that trap the microbes, and the vessels, which are tubes that travels throughout the body. Okay, and so diseases of the immune system. There are common disorders in the immune system. Some are the allergic disease, which the immune system reacts strongly to allergens. Typically, examples are from allergies to food or to pets. And then we have the autoimmune disease. The immune system reacts against normal components of the body, which ranging from a rare cold, and they include diseases such as like multiple sclerosis, autoimmune thyroid disease, type 1 diabetes. and a few other. And as you can see, our or immune deficiency, which is the underactivity of the immune system, and as a result, a person is more prone to getting infections and diseases. And this, and some immune deficiency could be inherited. It could be a result of medical treatment, from chemotherapy, from cancer. It could also be caused by other diseases such as HIV or AIDS. All right, so let's talk about the digestive system, which our digestive system is responsible for breaking down the food we eat into smaller components for the body to easily absorb nutrients and discard waste. And it consists of um, accessory organs for digestion, including the tongue, the salivary gland, pancreas, liver, the gallbladder, and the gastrointestinal tract. And the process of digestive system there's two types. One is the mechanical digestion, which physically breaks down the food into smaller pieces through chewing. And then there's a chemical digestion, which involves the use of enzymes to break down the food mass into molecules so that our body can be able to use it as nutrients and then discard it as waste. And it consists, yes, okay. And let me see. So after the food travels, let me see here. Right. So after swallowing, the food travels down our esophagus and into the stomach, where the acid kills the bacteria and breaks down the food further. And the liquid from the liquid food then enters small intestine, where the acid is neutralized, and then there's enzymes in there that continues to break down the food, and then it takes out, the things that the body needs, which there are thin hairs called villi, which takes out the proteins, the carbohydrates, and all the nutrients that we need. And it travels down 20 feet of the small intestines, and it passes to the large intestines. And the final stop is the rectum, where indigestible food matter and gases are passed through the anus. And yes. So some fun facts about digestive is that the carbohydrate food stays in the stomach for 2 to 3 hours during digestion. Humans have 10,000 taste buds located in the tongue, and the liver is the only organ in the human body that can regenerate itself. That's pretty cool. And let's talk about the urinary tract. So the urinary tract consists of the kidneys, the bladder, the ureters, the urethra, which makes up the urinary system, and is also known as the urinary tract or the renal system. And its functions are to excrete waste from the body and work with other organs such as the lungs and the intestines to regulate the chemicals in our body. And so what exactly is the urinary system? The system through which it is a system through which urine is produced, it's stored and removed. And urine is liquid waste formed in and excreted from the kidneys. And the urine contains water, fluids, salts, proteins, hormones, and other waste products. And so the urine is expelled, is a process expelling urination, is the process of expelling urine from the body, particularly through, so as you can see here, the kidney produces the urine, and on the right hand side, you have what is called a nephron. A nephron is where the urine is filtered, and it has different tubes like the ascending loop and descending loop. So in the nephron, we have blood capillaries, and we have the veins, we have the arteries. And so once the urine is, as you can see, the nephron, once there's a capillary in there called the glomerulus, and in there, blood is filtered in and then filtered out. So then whatever comes out from the blood is what goes into the nephron. And so we have millions and millions in one, I believe, in one cortex of the kidney, which is the pyramid in the kidney. We have millions of nephrons, which excrete the urine. And so the urine first is produced in the kidney, and then it's transferred down to the ureters, and then the urinary bladder stores the urine, and urine passes through the urethra, which then passes out the urine. And so let's talk about some diseases. So the diseases occurring in the urine tract, particularly the blood, the bladder, the kidneys, and the urethra, are treated by urologists. And at times, urologists work with nephrologists, which they treat kidney diseases, and depending on the disease. And so when bacteria enters the urine system, then we have the urinary tract infection, which is also known as UTI. And UTI can occur in the kidneys, the bladder, and the urethra, and it's commonly known in women than men. And according to the American Urology Association, approximately 8.1 million people in the United States get infected with UTI each year. And they are typically treated with antibiotics. And when a person, let's say a person has urine incontinence, and he or she may experience urine leaks frequent and when they have leaks or frequent urges to urine or incomplete empty of bladder, which incomplete emptying of the bladder, which causes overflow. And so to prevent urine diseases, one, we should not hold our urine. We should be able to pee periodically and not prolong the periods of time. And then also the ways to treat the urinary disease involves medicine, physical therapy, and even surgery. And let's talk about, oh, sorry. So actually other diseases of the urine tract are painful bladder syndrome, the swelling or swelling of the prostate glands in men, and kidney stones. And types of cancer affecting the urinary tract include kidney cancer, bladder cancer, urethral and ureteral cancer. Let's talk about the reproductive system. So the reproductive system is created, the function is to create new lives that genes can be passed along to future generations. And a woman's reproductive system include a pair of ovaries that form eggs, and the that forms eggs, and uterus, where baby gametes, sorry, right. So the women's pair of ovaries form eggs, and that's where the baby waits until it's ready to be born in the uterus, and where the baby, I have this wrong. Sorry. Okay. And then the men reproductive organs include the testes, the sperm, where the sperm is formed, and a penis for delivering a sperm to the uterus. And an egg and sperm can fuse as a result of sexual intercourse, and conception occurs, and a baby begins to grow. So key facts about the reproductive system. which I said varies between two sexes. Therefore, human have humans have the male and female reproductive system, and we talked about here. You could see the organs that makes up the female reproductive system. And although genders is determined by which type of reproductive system a person has, rare cases occur in which person may possess both the male and female reproductive system. So we will have a pop quiz. Just kidding, guys. So, is your body sacred? After learning about all these 11 um, body systems, and we see how the body is maintained and how when anything goes wrong with the body, when we don't treat our bodies, when we don't eat the right food or we're taking in bad chemicals into our bodies, whether it's through I think the other day the women talked about relaxer and how it affects our body. So any chemicals like products that we use for our face, the lotions, if we don't be careful what we use for our body, we see how it can really disrupt our homeostasis. And if we talk about the body being our sacred space, we should treat it as if just like we talked about a sacred temple. When we go into a sacred temple, we do everything that we can to make sure that we are bringing in the peaceful presence and the energy, and we are leaving the same way. And so it's the same thing with our bodies. Whatever we put into our bodies, that's what we become. So we really should think about what it is that we are doing to our bodies and the things that we're putting in, and even um, internally, just thoughts that we're having on the daily basis, the conversations we're having on the daily basis. All these, before we do these things, we should think about, well, we should one, remember that our body is a sacred space, and also think when we put out these things, whether it's a negative thought or a negative conversation, are we treating our body as a sacred space? So I will go ahead and open up for questions. If you guys have any questions, please fire away.
All
I
right,
know this was a
excellent.
mouthful.
Yeah, I mean, but it's good. And thank you for pulling that together, Estella. I'm gonna let some other people go first, but I do have some questions. But let's see who has a question. I see one in the group here. McGarvey says, "Are the studies relating to skin conducted on people of color? Um, is there any way to know that?" And the second question is, "What causes the bone diseases?"
Right. So first question, are the you said, are the chemicals being tested on people of color?
The studies. Well, actually, I don't know if he could come in. Miguel, can you come in and ask your question? Are you here? I don't see him now, but he's saying, are the studies related to sun? I guess the sun diseases conducted on people of color.
There are studies related to people of color, and it does show that um, people who of darker skin color are less prone to certain diseases. From where their skin is much better protected from compared to like a Caucasian skin color, or a Caucasian person.
Okay, and the second question is, what causes the bone diseases?
Okay, so bone diseases, there are many factors that can cause bone diseases. Like I touched on not having good body mechanics. If you are on a job, let's say in construction for over 20 years, and you're lifting and putting pressure on your bones the same way for 20 years, all these things could degenerate our bones. Also, using alcohol or using a putting in different things in our bodies that can chip away. Basically, they chip away at our bones. So the environment that we're in, whether we are somewhere, our jobs can cause that, can cause different disease, bone diseases, and also lost my train of thought. Yeah, so our jobs, heavy lifting, using not using good body mechanics, and just in age with over time, our age, we it's almost, I forgot how many percent of a human that we decrease, but over time with age, our bone starts becoming more brittle. So yeah,
I also read that soda
yeah.
create osteoporosis. Is that correct?
Yeah, so soda, gas, these things, like I said, with alcohol or liquid that we put into our body, these things chip away at our bones and it makes it brittle. And I don't know if I can go back to the bone slide where, blood is our bone marrow is produced in the bones. And so when we are using these different products and drinking soda and drinking alcohol, these things can affect how our bones are, how our bloods are being. I'm losing my train of thought.
How
So
your
how
blood is being produced?
Yeah, how our blood's being produced and how it opens up the pockets in our bone because we touch a little bit on spongy bones, so which
Mhm.
are bones, but they're more spongy, they're brittle, and they're thinner platelets, and so all these little things kind of chip away and degenerate the bones.
So if the blood is created in the bone and you do activities or drink or anything smoking, does that now create a more inferior blood going through your body, which creates an inferior effect on the organs, which shorten your life? Is that kind of how it works?
Absolutely, because our blood is created in our body. When we're putting these things or smoking, using chemicals, they get into our bloodstream, which um, are then, it's almost like in our bloodstream, our blood is being pumped all around our body, and the blood is whatever we're putting in is also being pushed all the way and all around our bodies, which are disrupting different systems, which causes shorter life expectancy.
Wow, that's very interesting. I have a question in regards to pollution and the environment that we're dealing with now, where you have, especially some of the bigger cities, recently in April when they had everything shut down, they said that the environment, the air was better because humans had to sit down for a minute. But it shows some of the before and after pictures where the air was terrible. So we're essentially living in an environment that can affect our bodies because of what's going into our skin,
Absolutely.
and essentially affect our immune system. So where instead of having better air quality, we are now taking that system and giving it allergy medicine and giving it Claritin, which isn't essentially helping you at all, is just masking the problem. Is that
Absolutely. Yes, I've
wow?
seen these pictures, and it just shows how like I said, the automobile exhaust or living near a factory, how and then now seeing how people are sitting down and not working, we see how the air has cleared up, but mostly and usually that's how our air is because we're all working, we're all out and about working, and so it's causing. Hang on a second, I'm talking. So it's causing, all these pollutions. These are the things that we regularly take into our body, and that's why, and it even passes down to mothers who are pregnant. These things, the pollutions, the pollen in the air, all these things are coming into our bodies and are getting kind of flushed all around our bodies, and it affects and it disrupts our systems.
Philosophically, when I looked at the body systems, I couldn't help but think of a house and how similar the body system is to a house. The bone structure being the wood in the frame, the circulatory system kind of being the air ducts for those who have central air and central heat.
Hmm.
The electrical system being the forget what system you call it, but where your nervous system.
Hmm.
Um, but I also found it philosophically interesting how much more value we put on fixing our house
Uh,
and paying for our house and renovating our house and prettying up our house. But now learning, oh wow, look at all of these systems and how much care and how much time is being spent on the physical house. So it just made me
right.
look at that and say, wow, man, your body is worth more than your house. And
Yes.
sometimes if you don't take care of your body, you will never finish paying for your house. So it's the
Absolutely.
irony of looking at those two investments.
That's a very good point. I know it's like sometimes it's like we forget about our bodies, but our bodies is what we need so that we can be able to have a home. So yeah, we do put so much time into other things and not look at what's really what matters is our body. And like you said, the wiring, our bodies, every system is working together to make sure that we can function properly. And so anytime that we're putting something bad into our bodies, getting bad quality of air, all these things is disrupting how the electricity in our body or so-called our house is working, but we don't think about it as our home, which it is our sacred space.
And on that point, scripture wise, there's a scripture that says, I think it's Second Corinthians 5. It says that if our physical bodies is dissolved, we had a body which is in heaven, which leads to my next question.
Mm.
Um, as far as systems, I noticed there were 11. Is a spiritual system also part of the body? Is there such a thing? And do they acknowledge or not acknowledge it? Because um, just like a house is not a house without people, without the spirit of people living in it, how come, as far as the systems, there wasn't a 12th system that says, well, there's a spiritual system that governs the body, even though it's not physical, it's still there? Do they deal with that at all in the sciences that you study?
Point. That's a good point you made. And actually, throughout my years of being a nursing student or just being a student in general, we've never talked about the spiritual side, and that's one component that's never been added into the system. It's always talked about, the body parts, the body system, but we leave the spiritual side out, which I believe the spiritual side is what can keep all the 11 systems intact. Because if we are spiritually taking care of our minds, our body, our insides, then we can better function all the other 11 systems. That is actually one thing that we don't talk about. And they don't bring it up, they don't talk about it. But it definitely shows that this is something that we need to seek out for ourselves because sometimes we're getting pieces of information, but we're not getting the information that can really change our lives. So I believe having maybe we should add it on today. We should add a 12. I mean,
I mean, I believe you should, because I mean, scripture says the body without the spirit is dead. And I wonder if many people who are disconnected, even
yep,
from the knowledge of body or even from the conscience or even the peace of mind, is because there is a missing piece, which is the spirit, which
yes,
without the spirit, there is no body. I mean, you'll have a body, but it'll deteriorate because it has no life. So I
right.
can't see how they would leave that out.
I love
Okay.
that you touched that.
Okay. Someone else had a question here. Well, they had their hands up. McGarvey, you got to unmute and go ahead. Ask your question.
Sure. Yes, greetings. I really appreciate the presentation,
That's
full of great information. I did have a question. I guess my initial question would be, I don't know if you stated it, my phone was giving me issues, but about what causes osteoporosis
hmm so
and those degenerate bone diseases?
hmm let me see if I can go back to my
We
notes.
did
But
touch on it, McGarvey. Did you want to repeat it?
yeah, I can go ahead and
Okay.
a little bit here. Let me see. Okay, so osteoporosis is the abnormal loss of bone mass, which makes the bone fragile and prone to back fracture. And so that I kind of touched a little bit on how, you know, not taking care of our bodies, or being in a job doing things that are, heavy for our jobs, sometimes for our bodies, sometimes even lifting weights that are not, for our weight bearing for our own bodies, but we do that sometimes. So lifting, I talked about, for me, how I work as a CNA, and I'm working with elderlies, and they have a lot of dead weight. And so I see a lot of caregivers using their bodies, because, instead of asking for a second hand, they'll say, okay, I can just quickly move this person and just transfer them from bed to chair. But little do they know, over time, you are putting so much pressure on your body, and you're causing your body to become, you know, to lose the bone mass. It's almost like you're beating and beating on your bones. And so eventually that, which is what leads to arthritis, which is inflammation, swelling of the joints, and so your joints start, the joint is basically like a ligament that's between the bones. And so over time, it's almost like you keep scraping on that joint, can cause pain and then cause stiffness. That's why sometimes when people, will bend, and it's like, oh, that hurts, because it's like your joints are not there anymore. Now you have bone on bone, rubbing on each other. So all these other things that can cause the bone to become brittle and fragile over time. And also with age, as we age, our bone starts to degenerate. So over time, also we are losing bone mass, and so all these things can cause bone diseases. Does that answer your question?
I think we lost McGarvey. He's asking a question and he's getting disconnected. Okay, we'll move on. Did anyone else have any questions? If not, I have. Um,
Okay.
Another question is mucus and the building up of mucus in the body,
Hmm.
and what effect. I don't think you touched specifically on mucus. Maybe you did, but I didn't catch that.
Hmm.
But I read in a book by Arthur Eret, The Mucusless Healing System, that one of the causes of many of the diseases, if not most, is because of a buildup of mucus. And I think you touched on something about fluids buildup in the body. Can
Hmm.
you elaborate on that at all?
Yeah, I talked a little bit about, I think it was in the lymphatic system, and so how our lymphatic system basically, it's what manages the fluid levels in our body. So let me see if I can find more information here. One moment. Yeah, so basically mucus, it's basically our body telling us that there is waste in our body. Some mucus can be good. Um, some mucus can carry proteins and minerals and nutrients, but then the waste that comes from the mucus are basically like foreign pathogens. Like, let's say when you are sick and like you're coughing off phlegm. And so that's your way of the body trying to eliminate those waste from the body. And so our body, the lymphatic system, what it does is it's fighting off any foreign pathogens, any foreign things that say, hey, this is not a normal cell. This is not a normal liquid in our body. And so those are our lymphatic system, the nodes, the different pieces of the lymphatic system is now trying to take and excrete the mucus out of our body. I hope that answers the question.
So, so right, it does. And he also mentioned, well, if you have a high dosage of lemon, what that does is that helps to cut the level of mucus,
Mm-hmm.
and also help. I don't know if it goes as far as to break down the plaque, but he says mucus turns to plaque.
Yeah.
Plaque, when it gets hard, starts to prevent the organs and the parts of your body from doing what it needs to do, and it also prevents your white blood cells from going to defense. And he used the example. He said it's like driving with your brakes on. So your
Mm-hmm.
body is pretty much trying to defend itself, but the mucus is preventing it from defending itself. So I,
Right.
I thought that was interesting when you did mention the fluids, that there are fluids floating around in your body that's not good, and certain foods. I notice when I eat certain takeout, certain chickens, or even takeout in general, I don't know what they're doing, but there's always this mucus or alcohol. There's always this kind of mucus that comes from that type of activity.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said with I think you said lemon. So lemon, it's an acid. It's like an acid product, just like in our stomach when the food is going down. In our stomach, we have acid or like enzymes that break down the food, and so lemons kind of serve as that. That's why it's like when we drink or when we eat, let's call it like oily food, and then we have like a nice lemon tea or lemon water with it. That lemon water is helping to break down and getting through that oily phase because it's like the acid. It's also another way of, it's more of, I guess, the physical way or out of body way of getting or breaking down the mucuses in our body. And there's other ways to do that too. But yes, we do have invaders. We have healthy cells, we have bad cells, and then we have, our immune system, which includes the white blood cells, the antibodies, and all of these are fighting for our bodies. They're fighting to help us keep what's ours and then eliminate what's not ours. But
Okay.
over time, these things sometimes when, we're not eating good and we're not treating our body well, over time, these things build up like fat deposits and droplets, and it's hard for other things to, just a nice lemon water to get through it and break through. And now we need surgery to take care of these.
Surgery. Mm.
So
Okay.
that's why it's so important to, watch out what we're doing to our bodies. And because over time, it will prove to us exactly what we did. So,
Mm.
you know,
Good
we
point.
take care of ourselves because, like I said, our body is a sacred place. So if we continue to think about it as if, then we can live longer and be here to see our kids and our grandkids. So
Hmm.
that's what I live for.
Absolutely. We have another question here from Jabrita, and she says, "What is the best diet to regenerate bone calcium and erase the inflammation between joints?"
I would say anything rich with calcium. So any foods like or dark leafy foods, vegetables, those are great. Taking or yeah, taking additional calcium supplements, all those things can help. So definitely eating calcium rich foods can help you do that.
Okay, and thank you for that.
Yeah.
Let me see. Let me see if there's any last
Can you hear
question.
me?
Yes.
Sorry, I got disconnected. I've been having phone issues. What about magnesium? I've heard that that's also um, a great way or a good supplement to help with.
Magnesium. I'm actually not too much familiar with magnesium, but I know it is a nutrition or a mineral. So any good minerals that our body can benefit from, of course, it would help our bodies. But I'm not too much acquainted with magnesium, so I would definitely say looking it up, and you know, I think you'll have some great information about that. But
All
it is
right.
a rich mineral.
We have one more question from Trevon. He said, question on the digestive system. What's the effect of eating food and drinking liquor at the same time?
Huh. Digestive. So I know our bodies, I've heard different things. And so our digestive system, right, is to help us to break down the food and to help to get the good nutrients and minerals, and then excrete the waste or the things that are no good for us. So, but I'm not really sure because I know, there's people that say don't eat and drink at the same time. And there's people saying, having a liquid and, eating and basically washing your food down. One could be a great thing and one could be a bad thing because one, you're rushing your food to get down through your intestines, where sometimes other, it's almost like mixing milk and oil. It's like they don't mix. Or having, I'm losing my train of thought, but having like foods that mix that can cause like a clog in your body, and food and liquid that can cause clog in your body. So I would think, just from my background in anatomy and physiology, I would think that it's not good to drink or eat and drink at the same time. Maybe eating and then giving it some time for the food to do what it needs to do on its own, and then drinking whatever it is that you're drinking. But I think if it's water, I would say it's fine, because our body, we are made of water. But other liquids, that can cause the food to do other things and cause it not to digest properly.
I also hear them talking about s- uh, in Italy. They say, yeah, a glass of wine a day is good. It's good for your blood. Um,
Hmm.
and the funny thing about some of these concepts is when you look on, let's say you look online, you'll have one person swearing for it and another person swearing against it. So you're right back to square one. Not
Right.
really knowing which perspectives.
Right.
Um, last My last question or statement, I came across many years ago something called Codex Alimentarius, and they were talking about how foods were being coded in order for them to know the nutritional value of what foods would give what type of nutrition to the human body. And by coding the food, they also knew that by giving certain inferior foods, that they could predict certain diseases. So I invite everyone to take a look at that Codex Alimentarius, and I believe she said it was rolled out in Germany or one of the European nations. But how that concept was coming to the United States, and so now we hear they're talking about putting food on the blockchain. I believe Alex is here, and she probably have a little bit of insight. Is she here? No, she isn't here. But they were talking about putting food on the blockchain so that they can track food from the farm all the way to the table.
Mm.
Kind of the same kind of Codex Alimentarius. And for those who don't know what the blockchain is, the blockchain is like a ledger system that records every single transaction that happens. So they use it for Bitcoin, where every transaction that happens in Bitcoin is recorded, or any one of the other cryptocurrency. It's on the blockchain, and that is the ledger that shows the transaction. So they're not trying to put food on
Mm.
this transactionary system so that they can track whose food, what type of food, where did it go, who bought what, which sounds almost like Codex Alimentarius in determining what foods go where.
Mm.
So with the food now comes the nutrition, and also being able to know that by zip code, this zip code could get this type of food because this has a high concentration of this type of people. Might go a little bit more to the conspiracy side, but nonetheless, someone is able to know what foods is coming into your neighborhood. And so, just like we had Alexandra and her dad the other day, Roy, showing how to grow your own food, it's something to also consider if you want the type of nutrition that was mentioned today in regards to what is best for your body. You have to fight a more proactive war and not just sit back and go to the grocery store and pay for organic kale, which you may or may not know where it was made, how it was made, and the nutritional value. A gentleman that I met maybe 3 years ago said a food desert is not necessarily just places where food isn't growing, but also foods where you're not getting the proper nutrition or your body is not properly absorbing the food. Because food going in, and maybe that goes to Trayvon's question, is your body absorbing the nutrients or is something preventing it from absorbing the nutrients? Because if it's not absorbing, it's almost like if you didn't eat it. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All
And
right.
somebody did ask about, sorry, real quick, asked
Yep.
about the, oops, I lost it here, but he had asked about magnesium. So I just wanted to give him some information about that.
Okay.
Um, so magnesium is pretty much is what the body requires. Like our body makes up magnesium on its own. through something called oxidative phosphorylation and glycose. And so it's basically it's required. It's an energy production that our body makes, but when we take it as a nutrition, it's like an enzyme that regulates the reaction of our bodies, like which helps with including protein synthesis, with muscle and nerve function, and blood glucose control, and it helps with blood pressure regulation. So it's pretty much energy that our body makes, but sometimes we need more of it as we with age we
Hmm.
need more of it, so our body's not producing as much. So there's definitely really great benefits to eating rich foods with magnesium or taking supplements
Hmm.
or, and eating or taking supplements. So I hope that kind of answered your question. But there are some great benefits into taking magnesium
Awesome.
to your diet.
Well, Estella, that was a great presentation, and a great way to end our body segment so
Absolutely.
that we could learn about the actual greatest asset that we have and hopefully take better care of it. I mean, I've been hip to some things that I see can be improved so you can really get the maximum use. And like we mentioned, the spiritual part, don't forget that, because you're actually like superhuman inside of this frame. And so tapping into all of those systems, balancing, I think balance is important. So
Hmm.
hopefully, these segments and body has been a blessing to you all, and you can implement it in your life to have a
Yeah.
longer life and to do more things and to follow your purpose. And we thank you again, Estella. I'm gonna just, if you mind, just let me share the last screen. Tomorrow we begin our spirit segment. For those who want to continue the journey with us, we're going to go on and do our spirit segment beginning on the 21st, and we're going to take it all the way to the 30th. So we have some good stuff in store. I hope you all have a great, blessed day. Thank you for following the journey. Please share with other people, 30dayredemption.com. And also make sure that you have others and yourself support what we're doing, even if you support by going on the page on Facebook and giving a review of what your experience has been like and if you've been blessed by what we're doing. So thank you all. Have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow, God willing. Take care, and thanks again, Estella.
Thank you.
All righty. Bye bye.